Okay, great. All right. Well, welcome this evening to our I don't even know what number this is, but it's way down the line of our presentations this year. Tonight's speaker is Matt Kolbusz. I want to say that right. And Matt is a graduate of the New School's MATESOL program, and he's a certified TESOL instructor. He's an instructor at Queens Public Library in New York City, and he has done a lot of work in the field, applying his background in advertising technology to educational technology in hopes of shortening prep time. Who doesn't like that? And heightening student engagement with invigorating experiences both in and outside of the classroom. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guest speaker and turn it over to you, Matt. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claudia. It's such a pleasure to be here with you guys today to go through this webinar and training, and also shout out to Leslie. I see some people that I know from Queens Public Library, Ronald and Lisa as well, and I'm excited to get to know everyone. Before I jump right into the presentation, I want to start off with the gift, and that is the actual link to my presentation here. It is a Padlet. It is open, so you feel free to, as we're going along throughout the presentation, I'm going to share my screen and we'll go post by post. But do feel free to you can add little comments, questions to the Padlet itself. It will appear live on the webinar. I can answer those questions in real time or also hold off with them until the end. But if I don't get any questions, if I don't get to any specific questions, to any specific related posts, I'll definitely answer them before tomorrow. So there's the Padlet. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we can walk through this together. Awesome. Okay, really cool. First of all, I want to thank Westchester Community College English Institute for having me here today. It's always a pleasure to share my findings and my classroom experiences and insights that I find from really awesome books that are out in the field. I love the sense of collaboration we have in the field, and always passionate to share what I've learned in the classroom. So as you may have seen from all the posts about this workshop, including things, tasks that your students will love in the classroom, especially for homework, as we know that having that engagement between classes and having homework assignments that are very relevant to students definitely helps with attainment during the semester that we're teaching. So what are we learning about today? So here's our agenda. Don't mind the image. Today we're going to go through an introduction. I'm going to share some power tools. Power tools are 4 principles that have been found through neuroscience, psychology research, plus educator research in the field. And so we've come up with these 4 great principles, as well as additional principles that I have that will latch on to really heighten that student experience. And then we'll go through the 5 homework tasks, the 5 homework types that I have for you. Don't get overwhelmed. If there's a task type that you love, then I definitely recommend focusing in on that. But I'm always here to help you craft how we can take the concept and put it effectively into the classroom. And then the last one, giving collective feedback. With these types of homework assignments, I will caution that giving detailed feedback on every piece of work is going to be overwhelming and will cause burnout. So there's a way to effectively tackle on feedback. And then we'll do a Q&A at the end of this presentation. So what's the opportunity here to solve for? What are we looking at in this presentation? What are our goals here? We're looking at really being able to increase the level of participation in our classrooms. We want to really allow there to be more that's contributed from our students that's more authentic and relevant. We want to make sure that students are actively engaged in the homework and that it's not minimal in between classes where there's a lot of space time where these items, these target pieces of language that we're teaching don't go from not being used. Also things like tackling on motivation. Sometimes homework assignments when we're giving out worksheets or there's a project students may not enjoy, there's some things here that we'll explore there. Talking about prioritization of this and then also gaining higher attainment, as I said at the beginning. So the real goal here of today's exercise is really finding out ways to gain higher attainment and language acquisition by the end of your semester, focusing predominantly on fluency practice. So in today's workshop, I'm not going to be focusing on those fun electronic Kahoots and Quizlet and quizzes. Those are more accuracy practice that of course can be incorporated in the classroom, but we also want to tag on fluency exercises to help congregate all those wonderful skills that your students are learning. And then we're going to focus in on homework tasks that'll increase student engagement. So the first book or the inspiration of where this came from, this workshop, is this book called The Powerful Teaching, Unleash the Science of Learning. Essentially, Pooja and Patrice partnered together. Pooja's experience is more in neuroscience and what goes on in the brain during learning. And Patrice, her experience is a lot in the classroom, being there, taking note, putting pedagogy together, really exploring deep concepts from second language acquisition. I have the first chapter. I thought it was spectacular, the book. The first chapter really is the summary to the whole book, and then they later go into very detailed segments. I have that here for you, download introduction here when you have free time outside the presentation to explore that. I also recommend the book as well if you want to go into this in depth. But I'm going to essentially summarize the main point here from the book. And that's essentially, we have this process, right? We have this process in learning of students being able to encode, download all this information, working to keep it stored. But we ultimately want to get to that final part, which is the retrieval, the ability to be able to go deep inside and pull that specific target language that they learned in week 2 or week 4 and be able to integrate it in the communication task that they are in. So what did Pooja and Patrice realize through their research together? They realized these 4 topics, which I know are 4 topics and strategies that you think of in your lessons. You do this naturally. So we just want to really be able to raise this to the surface and see ways where we can mix these 4. And that's retrieval practice, right? Which are exercises where students really need to think and be able to pull out what they have learned through more targeted exercises in previous classes, being able to bring it, apply it to some type of a function, concept, or project. Spacing, spaced repetition, I know is a very popular term in the industry. So making sure that there are multiple ways of being able to use that target language. Interleaving, and this is something that is very key and something that I've been focused on more, is typically in classrooms, we really compartmentalize. There's a lot of activities that focus in on very specific pieces of target language. And through the use of projects and other tasks, we're able to mix it all in and instead of compartmentalizing, so that students feel like they can authentically use the language naturally without hesitating to think of one particular grammar structure, vocabulary word that came from one particular section. So interleaving has more to do with mixing and being able to differentiate use and function between different pieces of target language. And then feedback-driven metacognition, giving those learning opportunities for students to realize what is it that they know, what is it that they don't know. Self-correction is also part of this, being able to ask questions and really stretching their ability to do more in the classroom. So the great news here is you are familiar with these, you do them. It's just a matter of now integrating into the principles that I have put together here, which the first 4 obviously is the retrieval practice, the spacing, mixing previous language points together, instilling metacognition. But then also I've realized through my experience in the classroom, being able to give students creative control in tasks, which sometimes is scary because we want to give parameters, we want them to focus on specific pieces of language, but being able to give them that creative control to really give that personalized response is really vital here. So incorporating student reflection or authentic language, we want to incorporate collaboration. I'm a firm believer that homework shouldn't be siloed, just done by the individual, that there's actually opportunity throughout the week or between classes for students to be able to give feedback to each other. And we'll see that in today's presentation. And then the last one, the part that scares people, are the modern day uses of apps. My fondest criticisms and critiques here like to talk about all the fads. We hear all these new apps that are in and teachers using them, but then after a while finding out, oh, but this could be done the same way using a different task. So really being able to use apps that are easy to use, don't require a lot of setup, and produce results in terms of motivation, engagement, and getting students to produce language. So through all of the activities, the 5 types I'm going to go over here, the question that comes up is, well, how frequently, right? I strongly recommend sticking to one type and allowing that type of exercise to be executed each week so that students formalize a formality with the medium. They understand, they have their account created, they know what to do, they know what buttons to press, they know how to, navigate the layout or the user experience of the app. You don't want to switch too much because it's going to cause each time to have to do another onboarding. And weekly is exactly the spaced repetition that we want as well. So the first one, first type is podcasting. And simply, I know this looks like a very high-tech type of activity, but essentially what we're looking at here is having students be able to record over a period of time around a particular topic using everything that they've learned up to the point in your class. You can, of course, set the parameters. If you work perhaps in more of a ESOL setting, you can allow students to choose their own major theme topics. If you teach like a business class, for example, you can have students pick a particular aspect like advertising or finance, whatever it is, that the path that they're going to go through. What I also want to add another layer in here is how can we have students partner together during the week to have that conversation, to practice fluency, but also speaking skills, like turning styles and how to respond back and building more of that natural communication skill. So this is what I have here in terms of podcasting, having students be able to produce a 5-minute segment. I know from my personal experience, I've taken a Spanish class before where I've had to record myself on a weekly basis, and I was always impressed that I was able to learn the grammar structure in particular that much faster because I was forced there to be able to implement all the language I've used to a certain point. So what does this look like in terms of apps? I'm going to show you Anchor.fm. However, for each activity type, I will show you more basic, easier ways to use it in case you don't want to use this particular app, right? So I'll always show you simpler ways to execute podcast using other apps. So the first one I have is Anchor app. Anchor is a wonderful software because it actually allows students to easily go in, record, and they can also have their classmate in class connect as well, and they can record together. So they can record an actual talk show, radio show, or a conversation around a particular topic together. So without further ado, I'm going to go into Anchorapp. This is my presentation here of the mobile experience, because you can, of course, do this on the website as well, but chances are 80% of your students are going to default to, let me download the app, and it's easier navigation, it's quicker done. So obviously, downloading the Anchor app, and then when they download the Anchor app, they'll obviously go through creating the login, the username, but down here where you see the plus sign on the app, they'll be able to invite friends to join if they wanted to have multiple people on the app, or they can start their own recording here as well. They have options on the bottom if they want to get creative, like adding music from Spotify. Because Anchor and Spotify have a partnership together, all of that music can be incorporated as well. So students want to incorporate a song and talk about a song, they can do that as well. They can add on different segments, audios can be added in as well. Students definitely have that capability to really create. And it's just as simple as hitting the record button, and they'll hit the button either by themselves or with a student, and they go right into here. I think I'm showing sorry. Here I'm showing how to get another student onto the app. But essentially they start recording, and then once they finish, the episode just gets stored, and then they have the ability to hit the publish button. When they hit the publish button, the first time they'll have the ability to name their show or playlist. I didn't go that far into this one. And then once they hit the publish, they'll fill out like, what is the name of the show? And then the beautiful aspect to Anchor.fm is, I think that's it for this one. The beautiful thing about Anchor.fm is once they finish the segment, they can publish to Spotify right away. So I have students that have created playlists and they're on Spotify in the playlist section, and they can share that with their teachers, classmates, people at home. Obviously, because their accounts are newer and don't have as many fans, it's not like their playlists are going to come up in the top 200. It's not like your students are going to be quickly found on Spotify. But that is one option, is if you wanted to go down the path of having students be able to come up with like a weekly show and have them published to Spotify. I have an example in this with a student of mine that created his podcast and he did one of his assignments on there. So that's one thing. Now, if you didn't want to use Anchor or wanted something a little bit more private, because I understand with privacy and students not wanting to be on Spotify, for example, I strongly recommend having students download the free Zoom where they get 45 minutes. This is option 2, and I'll show you option 3. The option 2 here is having them download Zoom and being able to record them in a conversation with someone else if they wanted to do partner work. If they were not going to do partner work and they were going to go alone, then just simply using the mobile sound app that everyone has to record voice, right? It's usually called Voice, the name of the app. They can record their voice and then send that audio either to Canvas, Google Classroom, your WhatsApp, Telegram group, whatever you use to communicate with your students, or have them submit assignments. So those are like a variety of ways to be able to get students to really own their programming and allow them to freely use language around a topic that is of interest of them and having them incorporate language. So here I have my student Will. He gave me permission to share this with you all today. So you can like click on his Spotify account, and this is one of his episodes that he did for our podcast project. I did it as an experiment in the classroom to see how students were going to react to the assignment, and they had a lot of fun, and it was really cool to get them on an actual platform. And they can of course delete their stuff afterwards if they choose not to be on Spotify. So that's activity 1. Activity 2 is the video activity where students record themselves on video. You give them a prompt, and this is very similar to journaling. We always hear in the field, oh, well, if we had students journal often, we'd be able to see greater attainment. Here's the video form of that. So the video form, I use a book called 642 Things to Write About. It's not an ESOL textbook. It's just a general journaling textbook with every single possible type of prompt that evokes some type of a really cool conversation. Things like, talk to me about a dish that your mom made you growing up that you didn't like. Describe it, right? Things that I wouldn't have thought of, or things that are not like the top 10 topics everyone uses. And students would basically record themselves through video and submit it the same way to you as you would assignments, either through text or Telegram, WhatsApp, Canvas. The one that I strongly recommend using as an app is Flipgrid. I'm sure most of you have heard of this. It is really easy to use. I have my account right here. I also was given permission to share this. But essentially, as a teacher, I just have to create the account and post the topic, right? I just need to post the topic. I need to fill out generally the title, the description. And then this is the part that I love, because I find that video is much more of an engaging personal experience than perhaps like a Canvas dashboard or a Google dashboard, for example. So here I have like National Geographic reading discussion. We had a topic here that I put up, and then I had students go on. It's very user friendly. It's very simple. I was able to bring this to I was able to bring this into a classroom with low-level speakers, and we're able to get them on really fast. What's great is they create an initial post, and then the students respond by essentially videotaping a video comment, okay? And then that gets posted underneath. And your students would do that to each other to be able to give each other feedback, appraisal, sentiments of relating to what they're saying. And what I like about Flipgrid compared to just recording on like a Google Classroom or a Canvas is that there's a lot of neat features. In this era, we live in a very TikTok era-ish. And by that, I mean that the younger generations love to explore creativity. They love to add things, emojis and banners and stuff. Flipgrid has all of that. So Flipgrid allows students to get as creative as they want with their videos. They can either create a video and send it, or they can get really high tech into it. And students really like the ability to record. I know it's a little nerve-wracking in the beginning to record yourself, but they do enjoy more being able to see other students record their reactions. And it helps this in between classroom to still feel like the experience is continuous between classrooms. That it doesn't feel like, oh, the last time I saw you was last Saturday. You still feel like you're engaging and communicating with your classmates between classes. Now, what if you don't want to use Flipgrid? You can have students create videos again on their phone, on the camera phone, and have them submit to WhatsApp and Telegram, or Telegram, which is just another WhatsApp, and you can have students respond to each other that way. Or some teachers have students create a fake Instagram account, like a secondary Instagram account, and have them upload. They can make it private and only accept students in the classroom, and they interact through the Instagram teleface, which makes it very similar to an authentic experience of being on social media. And students are very quick to really be able to adapt and get that started. It doesn't require a lot of time for that to happen. I also have a walkthrough here as well, like a walkthrough for students under resources. I also have Shayla's example here. It just is the video that she recorded that was based off of one of the topics. So this is something that you can watch and see. It's very easy to make. Students have the app. They do all the work on their phones, and they submit it, and they respond on their phone. There is no need to go to a website, figure out how am I going to transfer this video onto a desktop. And video is very valuable. There's a lot of information that we can get in terms of giving feedback. Oh yeah, I didn't know that hitting the X there would take me all the way to the beginning. All right. All right. Activity type number 3. This is my favorite. Okay. I may be a little old school for this, because when I tell my younger generation my younger students, they like to roll their eyes at me, but I've always been a fond of postcards. Now, postcards, you may think, oh, well, it's old school, it's paper form. No one really sends it to each other in terms of through the mail. It's more of like a sentiment driven. There's usually some type of a farewell or a check-in with someone, or hey, wish you were here on vacation. But one of the exercises that I found was really powerful in the classroom was, and I'll get into how this is going to look like tech-wise, but I want to focus on the principle of having your student just respond to the prompt. Tell me about something interesting that you saw this week, and take a picture of it. Let's start there. Is very powerful, because when they go to write about that picture, every week their response is going to be different. The language that they use is going to be different, because it's going to evoke different sentiments, different memories, different things, maybe forecasts about the future. It is very open-ended. You are giving students full creative control, but what you're going to see is that their fluency is going to rise astronomically because they're going to continue to recycle vocabulary from the past, new vocabulary that they've learned. Students always want to impress, so they're going to use retrieval methods to really be able to bring to the surface that new language and incorporate it. And so you're going to see their postcards evolve greatly. Now, what is this going to look like tactically? This you're going to love. The app is called Card Snacks. Okay. This is a free app. Yes, of course, there's a premium version. No, of course, we're not going to have students pay for a premium version to do this fun exercise. I'm going to do a demo for you of what this is going to look like, and I think you're going to appreciate it. Card Snacks is all about sending someone a smile, right? And so there is a psychological benefit incentive here of doing this. It just kind of helps with having students really send cards and feeling great about sharing. So I'm going to share with you my walkthrough. Again, I'm doing this on my mobile phone because it's easier that way. Yes, they can do it on desktop if they choose. So this is off of my personal phone. So here we go. So you're going to hit the Card Snacks app, right? Bite-sized greetings. Now, yes, there's obviously Card Snacks has a business model here. They're trying to have you use all of their cards, and a lot of them are free and you can send for free. But what I have students do is I hit the create your own button on the bottom here. Create your own. All they do is they hit that blue button, and this is all free, of course, and they're going to come to their canvas. The first thing that they're going to do is they're going to pick a picture. So they're going to click on top to create over. It's going to come into this little edit mode. On the bottom here, I showcase all these like fun little creative things, but they all need to just do one thing. And that one thing is hit the photos and videos button, which is going to take them to their camera. Right? Don't mind my all fun little, I take a lot of screenshots in life. So this is like a little brunch pic from last week. So I'm deciding to share this, right? And on the first page, you'll see here, they've incorporated the picture, similar to like a postcard. They can extend it. They can add little emojis if they so choose, but it's just sticking to the basics here. You add your image. Then they're gonna hit the next button. Sorry, they're gonna hit the button up top here, message. It's going to take them to the actual message. And here is where they start writing, right? This is where they start their letter format, right? Either talking about something that they did that was interesting, something that they saw. I tell my students always have their phone on them, right? They write out the language. Obviously, you're going to have a large variation of what students can produce amongst the levels. But they can create, it doesn't have to be a long exercise. It's just a matter of getting them to go on to write, to familiarize themselves with what's going on in the classroom and use English. Once they put their message, they're going to hit save. And then all they have to do is hit, here you can preview it on the top. And then, and they're going to hit continue on the bottom. Of course, it's going to ask you, do you want to send a gift card? The answer is no. You're going to hit skip. Then you're going to go to continue. Who is it from? You're going to put your name, or student would put their name. When are they going to send it right now? They're going to add recipient manually, which is not spelled correctly here. And all they're going to do is they're going to put your name or your email address to begin with. You can for free send the email to one person in case there's a question about, can you send it to the whole class at once? No, but I'm going to show you how we're going to share it with the classroom. They're going to put your email, and once they put your email in the first time, it should come up so that they don't have to continue to spell your email out each time. So here they're sending it to me. Hit add. I'm added, and boom, it gets sent. And the question now is, oh, and then there's a little pop-up here that comes up once they send it with the link. They can take this link and share it on your Telegram, share it on your WhatsApp, share it on your Canvas, share it on your Google Classroom, right? Share it wherever you guys speak to each other, or students have to submit something, right? So there's that element of sharing. Now, I know what you're thinking is, okay, great, Matt, you talk about collaboration. This is a one-way project, right? You're just sending it to the teacher. First, I want to say you can share it in any one of the channels that you use. And what happens is, let me show you something. So here is, let me actually get, let me get the actual one that I use, because that was a test one. So here's my queenslibrary@gmail.com account. You get it in your app, and you can also get it in desktop. I'm going to show you desktop because there's something powerful I want to show you that I'm going to do in live in person. But yes, on the app, it would go to your app as well. And you get an email notification. And you get an email reminder if you don't respond to the student. So there's a lot of controls here to make sure that there's still that engagement. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the card. Right, so here's the card that I sent myself. Here's the picture. Here's the language, right? And then, sorry, and the way, small little thing with card snacks, you turn the page by hitting the top right. I don't know why they did that way. This is my favorite part, write a reply. So it doesn't matter if they just sent it to you or, sorry, and they take the link and they put it in wherever you can share amongst the classroom. Anyone can hit the card, go through the same card and write their reply. You know, so students can talk about, oh, wow, that's so incredible. You can give constructive criticism as well. Be like, hey, Matt, you know, thank you for sharing, da, 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 da. And then you hit send. And what happens is it goes back to the student. So your feedback goes back to the student as well as their classmates. If they do the same exercise, it gets sent to the student and they'll be able to see it on their dashboard. Which I think it came up, yeah. It'll come up in their dashboard and they'll be able to see all the commentary. I think what's a little confusing here with this one is I'm sending it to myself. Oh, here we go. So here's one. Here's like a one where I tried to use 2 different email accounts to do this, to show you like student to teacher and teacher back to student or student to student. Their feedback will come up. So they'll actually be able to go to Card Snacks, open the card that they sent you and see feedback from you, see feedback from other classmates, and have there be that back and forth and have there be that sharing. So that's Card Snacks. If you don't want to do Card Snacks, then what I recommend is having students share an image, you know, with a blurb about what it is that went through during their day and leaving it open to allow them to explain, talking about their day or talking about something interesting or neat that they've seen or something that they've done during the week, but keeping it open. And I'll show you another activity later on that you can do if you don't feel comfortable with either one of these solutions. Number 4 is staggered book club. So extensive reading in the classroom is something that is very important for vocabulary development, for having students become accustomed to syntax, and having students really be able to improve their reading abilities, quite frankly. And it also is a great point to initiate conversation. So what do I recommend having is I recommend selecting a book that's relevant to your course. It could be a fiction or nonfiction book if you're in a general ESOL class. If you're in like a business context or an art context, you could choose a novel, of course, based off of the level, and initiate it and have these book club checkpoints. So during the week, students will give some type of, will produce some type of a reaction to the chapter. And that can either be a reaction, an inference, it could be, we want to stray away from summary as much and allow for reactions, predictions, did they catch any foreshadowing, things like that. And the best way to do it here, in my opinion, is to use Padlet. You can also use a shared Google document as well. So I will show you what that looks like. But you can also incorporate this in the classroom where you can meet with your students every 2 weeks or every week to spend 15 to 20 minutes to actually bring this up on the screen and talk about it. Another teacher gave me the recommendation of doing first chapter Fridays, which is where you pick different books. Obviously, students have different interests, and you just have the student read the first chapter of the book. And if they like it, they can continue with it. And if they don't, then they can, obviously wait till the following week where you produce, you give them another book to read. So here's an example. I did this in real time. I did this as an example. This isn't like an actual classroom one, but essentially each session or each week or each chapter will come up here in the headlines, and you'll give them a task, right? You'll give them a task about either the reaction or predictions, things that they want to comment, similar to a book club style and less of a summary type of writing skill. And you allow them to, within Padlet, record themselves. So you have the ability, students have the ability to record themselves and add their recording to Padlet, and they can either type or produce. I think in Padlet, you can only have written responses to comment on students' work. So this is an ability to be able to get them to really be able to produce language. So that I have as the reading task. The last task here I have, and I think this is probably the simplest tech exercise, tech application. It's the weekly show and tell. Something that we do really well in show and tell is like the first week, the introduction, tell me about yourself, tell me a fun fact, 2 truths and a lie. But we can actually incorporate show and tell throughout the semester. And I'll show you some ways of doing this, but this gets students to basically own a piece of digital land or a slide and be able to show. So you get to create the massive slide, and I'll show you what that looks like. What you'll do is you'll create a Google Sheets slide, a deck of how many ever slides per student. You give the parameters in the first slide, you open up so that it's shared amongst everyone, and then each student will go, and there's instructions here, so you can just use this if you like. You can produce an example if you want as well. And then students have their slide. So activities here that are great, prompts, having students build vocabulary sentences and having them pick an illustration or use it in a context or write about where did they use the word. You can use it for building grammar sentences and also tying it with illustrations, but each student has their own slide. Purpose for here is for students to be able to have their landscape, and then what their classmates can do in response between the 2 sessions is go to each other's slides and produce comments. So, I can write a paragraph here and say somebody wanted to produce, give me feedback, or not even feedback, but talk about something that relates to them or provide comments. They can then be able to create a comment. And then here we are, Susie can write her feedback here, right? Her feedback. And when I say feedback, I mean, not necessarily corrections, but her input, what she relates, what she likes about Stephen's writing here, and being able to have some type of a dialogue. And then they can hit comment, and then during the week, students can go back onto the slides and be able to see what everyone has produced in the class, because everyone has visibility to everything. And then what kind of comments students have put on their work, and really helping there be a dialogue there. I've used this a lot in vocabulary building. I have students, they get vocabulary lists, and I ask them to write a sentence using that word, and pick an illustration or draw whatever they'd like, and they go onto the slides. They can also do this on their phone with the Google Slides app, and they'll put their illustration as well as put their content on here, and then we can all provide a response. You can have each student write 1 vocabulary sentence and have students go back to each other's and add through comments additional sentences to get that practice, create that collaborative environment. And this is also great for writing exercises too. If you have students write, you can also have students come back, look at each other's introductory paragraphs, provide feedback or input there. So that is an exercise. And you can also do this for the postcards exercise. If you don't feel comfortable with the other media, you can have students on a weekly basis input their picture and their blurb about their day, or what is it that was interesting that they saw, and elaborate on it in this format as well. Awesome. Now I want to get to the feedback part, and this is the part where everyone's like, okay, great, so that we have students producing videos and audios and a ton of content, and there's only one of me, and there's a 5-minute video, 15 of them, 75 minutes just to listen, right? So some things I recommend is one, to have a Google Calendar or a calendar of your choice, or just even a piece of paper. And I wouldn't reveal this to the students so they know when you're checking their work, but to basically choose 3 or 4 students' assignments for the week and provide feedback there. Or what you can do is hit Wheel of Names, and you could put all of your students' names here. And at the beginning of the class, you can hit the button. Whoever's gets selected will have their work on display, and as a class you guys can talk about it, use that as an example, and be able to further elaborate. Obviously this is random, and if it keeps selecting the same name, you want to obviously give chances for other students, but the whole point here is don't focus on accuracy correction on a weekly basis on each individual's work, but rather pick at random. Or what I typically do the most is I create a Google Doc and I call it collective feedback, and I'll listen to 3 or 4. And what I will do on this document is I will write my feedback, either the sentences I hear that are not correct, or, okay, there's a lack of transitions. I create one document. I don't make this complicated. I'll list 5 to 10 items of things that I hear or see that are not correct, that are starting to become repeat mistakes. And then we use the first 15 minutes of class to go over this. And I do it in the form of, obviously giving appraisal and giving great feedback that they did the work, and then asking them to correct the 10 sentences I have, being like, what do you think are the errors in this exercise? Or talking about it. If it's general feedback around writing, or there's a vocabulary word that many students are using incorrectly, using this time, the first 15 minutes, to give general feedback. Because again, the whole point here is fluency work throughout the semester to be able to get them to get higher attainment, right? And the more they produce, the more hours of English they're in, and the higher they go. So that's on feedback. If you are the type where you really feel like they give work, you need to give them some type of feedback. Things like card snacks. When I receive a card snack, I'll usually comment to the content. I'll be like, oh, thank you for sharing about XYZ. Can't wait to hear more about it. And I just list one piece of positive feedback on each one of the assignments, acknowledging that I've received it, but they're not going to get feedback, critical feedback, until the next class. So that's my my spiel on feedback. Something that really helps in the development of homework, and you see this a lot more with all of the quizzes, is leaderboards and gamification, and a bit of competition. So what am I recommending here is, we're seeing in the field there being more experience points. If you ever played like Duolingo or any video game really of that matter, where you get XP points and you go up levels, that is something that is actually really motivating, we found in the classroom, in terms of like making sure students are participating and they are handing in work. And I know you may look at this and be like, oh, well, this is like giving grades. This isn't a reflection within the leaderboard how they score. It only keeps tally or tabs of successfully submitting assignments and on time. And there's an interesting article here about the evolution of experience grading, which essentially is not, you're going to get 100 on every assignment, or I'm going to start at 100 and I'm going to take points off for not doing. You're actually going to start at 0, and you're actually going to work your way up. So you're going to get points for each assignment, and it's called backwards grading, in the sense of like they're going to earn points throughout the semester. And this may not necessarily be a grade, but it could be something that is used to motivate. So I have some apps here where you can do that. here is here's one where you can keep tab. You can essentially add students. You can add all your students, and then you can award 1 point each time they do a homework assignment during the week. Something that I created this. It's called the Class Leaderboard. Simply, what you're gonna do if you choose to use this is write your student's name in. Whatever you write here automatically gets reflected on this dashboard. And then you give points for each assignment. Maybe it's just 1 point for doing. And this is great if you're not necessarily grading homework for accuracy, or if you're an ESOL program, like a community-based program where there aren't grades, is awarding them like 1 point for each homework assignment that they do. And then you can give levels, right? So each time they reach 10 points, level 1, 20 points, level 2. And what you do is at the beginning of the class, or you have this part of the Google Classroom, you essentially filter to the points, right? And you see, oh, well, who's the most active? This is a participation technique or method, not one to show who has the highest grade. So I'm just throwing that out there if you choose to venture down that path of using a gamification technique in your classroom. But do keep that in mind, because as we see more software coming out and more into the future, a lot of the exercises and apps that you use, they already have XP part of it, right? Students love to see that they gained a point, you know, for doing something. So we talked about this, making it motivational, including level ups, like every 10 points, you get, you know, a level up. You can include awards. Something that my teachers did way back in the day for this is they actually had whoever had the most completed assignments or got the highest quiz grade or had the highest average at the time, they would have them be the resident DJ. So they, during the break time, get to choose the music in the classroom, either at the start, the middle, or the end, or, you know, so they're the resident DJ, right? They can share their songs. Students love that. They love to share what they like. You can also give a homework pass, or you can give them a pass to submit one homework assignment late. Like, there's a lot of incentives out there. I don't know if your program does gift cards, things like that. And whoever has the highest amount of points by the end of the semester, you know, gets that. But making a little bit of competitive throughout the semester. So I have 10 minutes. Thank gosh, I finished earlier. I was worried I was going to go over. But I'd love to hear your questions, comments, concerns, and at work we also say sarcastic remarks as well. And before I get there, for anyone that's going to drop off, here's my email. It's in the Padlet. It's also on the screen here. Feel free, right before I get into QA, to email me today, tonight. You can email me whenever, I will respond. But if you write on the Padlet, I'm going to check it tonight, and I'll make sure that I give you what you need to set yourself up for the homework type that you choose to experiment with. But yeah, thank you. Go ahead. I heard Robert. How you doing? Oh, sorry, you're on mute, Rob.
Are you familiar with using social emotional learning for empathy, self-awareness, social interaction, goal setting, and conflict resolution with your apps? This is a K through 12 soft skills approach, and also as well as any K through 12 academic literacy, such as sentence stems, writing across the curriculum, annotating text, sir.
Yeah, of course. Right off the bat, in terms of conflict resolution, I don't have experience, nor have I thought about that element. But in terms of like social empathy and more of the soft skill work, there's a lot of work here in terms of having students sharing about their lives and contributing things like postcards, or you know, creating podcasts where they dive into deep topics, some of which could be, you know, a personal experience. One of which I actually really like is having students record an experience of theirs from the past. You give them a topic like your favorite vacation. I'm using that colloquially. And students create that, having them then respond in a way where they need to use the language of that more empathetic, those sentence starters. So you would teach, obviously you know how to do that. But then having students incorporating those sentence starters in their video responses and having them use that experience to get more practice in that. Did that answer your question?
Make interconnection, you know, empathy, awareness about oneself, and interact with other people for social emotional learning. I know it's big on K through 12, and it's gaining ground in adult and in college settings, sir.
100%. And I think a lot of that has to do with how students respond to other students. And I think these activities where they get to record and listen and be able to replay to get their a point across and have to think, how am I going to respond to that, breaks down that process. So they have to think about using those skills and that language so that when they go into a real life environment where, okay, now a student's speaking to me in real time or someone's speaking to me in real time, I can use these skills much faster because I've done the prep work in the assignments. Yeah.
Matt, there were a couple of questions that came in
Sure.
the chat. So let me try to get through some of
Go for it.
these. Somebody asked if they have to, for the Spotify account, do they have
Yeah.
to have a paid account? And
No.
can it be kept private?
Great question. So the first part of the question is Anchor and Spotify are free. Spotify, there's ads if you have the free account. Anchor is fully free. To be fully transparent, producing a podcast on Anchor at this moment, because I checked with them, is not, you can't have it be private or unlisted as of today. That is something that they're looking into. But I will say from my experience, students that create their podcasts, it's hard to find them unless you have the link to their channel because they don't have that. It's almost like creating a new video on YouTube and not having all those followers and those interactions follow you. You don't come up in any of the top 15 or top 20 video searches. But I understand that privacy is something that some students and some programs require. So as it's a solution I'm looking for something fun, creative out there that can be unlisted, like YouTube. YouTube might be a better option than there to create their video podcasts or even record audios and upload those and through YouTube make it private and unlisted.
There was a question about the podcasting.
Sure.
And if you ask the students to write up a script before they record.
I don't because I teach a lot of communication skills classes and it's a little painful because I feel like it's more of a writing exercise when they do that. Unless you're giving them feedback on pronunciation, but it's not authentic. And what I really want here with my students in particular is I of course recommend them to have note cards with bullets, 100%, so that there is structure and that there is some type of a guide, but I really want them to use what they can do. And of course there's a lot of reasons for and against what I'm saying, but yeah, no, I want them to produce what they can, even if they've never done this before and it's real a struggle. Just at least take the first step, because you'll see that by the end of the semester they're going to get very confident with it.
Thank you so much. Another question from Kathy here. What level students do you start using these tools with?
Flipgrid, high beginners, because I believe they can change the language. Not that we ever recommend this, but they can change the language of the interface to their first language, if I'm not mistaken. So it helps them with like instructions around using the website. But I've used that as low as like A1, low beginners, all the way through.
A question about Google Slides. Can the students manipulate the slides on their phones?
Yes. When you download the Google Slides app, as you would any app, they log into their Gmail as they would, and that task, the file, once you share it with everyone, will come up in their dashboard. They hit it, and exactly how you see it on desktop, they'll be able to do it on mobile. They can add pictures directly from their phone. They can write in there as well. It's easier on the desktop, but they can also flip back and forth in real time.
Here's a great question from Lisa.
Sure.
A comment saying, amazing tools and so much learning in 45 minutes. I think we can all echo those feelings. A question about kind of mixed age groups within a class. How do you manage, the tech tools if you have a younger group and an older group within the same class?
Yeah, so what I strongly recommend, when I introduce an app at the beginning of the semester, and I do this at all levels, including my lower beginner, I actually record myself. I use Screencastify. I'm sure you guys have other apps where you can record yourself doing a walkthrough. And so I actually create a walkthrough. I have another Gmail account that I use, and I create an account as a student using that other Gmail, and I show them how to do it. And believe it or not, just showing that tutorial video to them, they're all on it. Like they can follow along beautifully.
Thank you. I think that was the last question. I don't know if I missed anything, but if anybody wants to ask any questions, you can unmute and just ask away.
How about claim, cite, and cement text, where students select a sentence from a text and say what their reaction is, and they can communicate with each other through apps. Claim, cite, and cement an argument. Here's a sentence from a story that caught my attention. Here's why. Using sentence, I'm like, I think, in my opinion, I agree because, or this is my reaction to the sentence because. Using K through 12 academic literacy approaches, writing across the curriculum, or writing is thinking.
Totally. Yeah, for that, I would recommend one of, I think the written forms would be better, like a Padlet exercise where I talked about the staggered reading discussion, where you can actually have students or yourself as the instructor post the post and then have students react and respond to that. You want this to be collaborative, or do you want this to be individual where they don't see each other's work?
Collaborative or individual, sir?
So collaborative, I definitely recommend Padlet. Individual, I would recommend them probably submitting an individual assignment through your LMS like Canvas or Google Classroom. But there's also, their students can record their audio responses. That's one way to practice, their responses to that in real time, and just voice recorder their answer and submit it privately to you as well. Yeah. Awesome. Well, if there aren't any questions, I really thank you guys for your time, for hopping on, and I thank the Institute as well. I really hope that these exercises just help students continue the conversation between sessions. They feel engaged, they feel like they're doing something creative in the class. They're using the language, and they're really using the power tools of being able to intertwine or weave all of what they have learned in your class together to help them get more confident, especially in the areas of speaking. Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for your time today. I know we're always, trying to find ways to engage with our students, and these were great. Some of these were great reminders, and some of these I'm sure were new to some of us. So I really appreciate you. I appreciate our wonderful host here, Ms. Leslie Painter-Farrell, who has been the one scheduling Matt and working with Matt to get this to all of you today. So I hope to see you at the next webinar. Stay tuned for our next one. I'm sure Leslie will be sending that info pretty soon. So thank you all. Have a good night. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Matt, take care, man.
You too. Good to see you.
You too, man. Take care. Right on. All right, Leslie, take care. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you. Take care.
Be well.
Thank you. You too. I'm trying to stop the recording, but I can't do it.
That's okay. I'll put it.